So Michael, I want to thank you for sitting down and chatting with me today, and I want to dive right into it. So when I talk to people about you and about the work that you're doing at ASU, everybody talks about the transformation that you've been bringing about here. What is that? What are you trying to build here?
Well, I think the way to really look at it is that when you think about us at ASU as a university, we've decided that tradition will not be our objective, that the attainment of status will not be our objective. What we've decided is that we have to be a reflexive, adaptive, effective, efficient, innovative knowledge enterprise, and universities just typically aren't built that way. So we've gone into the root foundation of the organization and begun a process of altering its core operating conditions, what we call its design aspirations. So we've been looking at the root design, if you will, of the institution, and the folks here have been a powerful force for creating a new direction.
Yeah, you've really almost changed the DNA of the university itself. I think you call it a new American university. And you're doing really interesting stuff, bringing together the humanities and science, bringing together cross-disciplinary, but doing it, like you said, at that very deep level so that you're sort of engineering it. It's almost like you're an engineer, engineering it and then sort of letting it run.
Well, so if you look at knowledge enterprises produce ideas, they produce people, and they produce stuff. If you want it to keep doing the same thing, well, don't tinker with it, and eventually it will dissipate and go away. If you want it to do new things and to lay down the foundation for newer and greater futures, you have to constantly be engineering the actual structure of the institution itself, not organizational structure. It's like, how do you design for creativity? How do you design for genius? How do you organize for genius? How do you organize for facilitating the capacity to help people to be able to learn anything? To do all of that, you have to go into the repurposing of the organization, but more important than anything, you have to reorient the way people think. What we want to do is we want to be the kind of university that the future needs, as opposed to the kind of university that the past represents.
That type of thinking, what's going on at ASU, there's so much of that it's starting to create mass and this density of thought that literally is starting to create a gravity, that is starting to pull more people there. Have you begun to see that ASU is starting to become kind of a center for this type of thinking?
If you re-engineer the organizational genetic code to think differently and behave differently and operate differently, and then people begin to see that can take root here, then those with somewhat freer minds, those with somewhat freer ways of thinking about how to organize knowledge and how to advance knowledge, they'll want to cluster here. So we are beginning to see that, and I'm very excited about that. That actually exceeds any expectation that I had along the way, that kind of thing is happening.
One of the things that we talk about with the Tomorrow Project is if you can change the story that people are telling themselves about the future that they will live in, you can actually change the future. If you can change that narrative, you can actually literally affect how we're going to build the future.
Yeah, well, one of the things that drives me crazy is that people that somehow operate under the premise that the future's already determined. Nothing is determined. And I argue that with the determinists all the time, that they think that the fate of the earth is determined, the fate of humanity is determined, and there's a kind of built-in fatalism to this concept of determinism. And so I say that you can have either random evolution by just letting the forces of nature affect humanity in whatever way that they might affect us, or you can accept those forces and then in a sense have planned evolution where you've got, well, what do we want to be? What would we like to move toward? So for instance, we have science is far too passive in my view. Well, we're just going to understand nature and see what happens. I'm like, well, why don't we understand nature to see what happens, and why don't we also say, here's what we'd like to have happen.
Do you consider yourself an optimist?
Absolutely an optimist, and pessimists are driven by fear and ignorance. We're at a point in human history which is very unique. We have all of the tools, all of the mechanisms, and all of the means to visualize a future and to actually then take deliberate steps to achieve that future. We finally now have amassed enough scientific and technological capability to be able to say, well, what would we like to do? Oh, would we like the planet to come out this way? Would we like it to come out this way? So when you start thinking about humanity and human evolution and human existence, we are now a driving force for that. We're not the only force. There's other forces, but we are now a driving force, and science and technology enables us to do that. It's literally beyond belief where the power of the individual human is what technology is going to enable us to do, and what the Tomorrow Project, I think, outlines for us. It's not about the technology, it's not about the machines. The Tomorrow Project is about how to move humanity to this higher order function on all dimensions, and that's what tomorrow allows us to focus on.
One of the things we ask as a part of the Tomorrow Project is, once we have these fact-based, science-based conversations, which we're going to be having all throughout the university, we ask people, again, what is the future you want? For you, as you start to think out, and certainly you are surrounded by, I mean, certainly have so many different inputs to that vision. So when you sort of look out to the future, what do you see?
I tend to focus on the power of the individual. No individual limited. What can you imagine? And you should be able to figure out a way to do that. We've lived in a completely hierarchical society for tens of thousands of years where the individual has not always been maximized or empowered. My hope for the future is that that's what can happen. That technology and what the future offers can empower every individual to achieve whatever they dream. I mean, their heart's dream.
Michael, I can't thank you enough. It was a pleasure sitting down and talking to you. It's always good to chat with you, so
Thanks,
thank
Brian.
you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.